Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Dominions 5. This is the last episode, I believe, in my MA Man series which was called TheCrucible, played against about 9 other players, including Lucid Tactics, who should be making his own LP. He was playing as Scaleria. The game ended for me around turn 40 something, turn 44. And we lost. Eventually, we lost to Agartha. And I wanted this episode to serve as a sort of analysis and review of the whole game. So there are a few things I want to address. I've loaded up a turn roughly in the middle of the game just because I wanted to be able to refer to the map in talking about strategy. This is, I think it was turn 25, give or take. This is roughly when I had just pushed into Satis, but then Eise had come and taken all of my land, and then I was able to diplomatically get Scaleria and Marignan to fight back, and so I am taking back my land from from Eise, sorry. Right. Or roughly, this is roughly when this happens. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is like before. Maybe this is the first time Satis attacks. No, because I'm winning these battles. I'm not sure. Anyways, it doesn't matter. So there are a few things I wanna talk about. So I enjoyed this game a lot. I had chosen Man knowing that they were not an amazing nation, and I was hoping to have fun, to make something happen with them. At the beginning of the game, on paper, the two nations that I feared the most fighting were Eise and Agartha. And what do you know? Eise and Agartha are the two nations that end up fighting me do the most damage. Eise, I've already talked a lot about how I hate their sacreds. They're just so powerful. And more importantly, Man has like nothing to deal with them, or not much. Interestingly, I was just playing in another game where I was playing as Ulm, M.A. Ulm. And M.A. Ulm has these guardians, right? They have these anti-sacred weapons. And I just like chopped up Eise. Like I also was playing against, I had an immediate neighbor who was Eise. And Eise took over another neighbor, and then came after me. And I was like, dude, don't do it. You're going to die. And sure enough, he goes, oh, I've got like 20 Movar cavalries. Like, no problem. He had a quickness bless on his guys, right? So imagine quickness bless on Movar cavalry. He has 20 of them. And like the Alm Guardians just chop them up. Like it was not even close. So it's not to say that Eise is completely broken and overpowered. I think they're maybe a little powerful, but there are certainly nations that can kill them. Man is not one of those nations. But on the other hand, I did what any nation can and should do, is get everybody else panicking about Eise and attacking them. And I think that was a success, I think we can say. Getting Marignan and Scaleria to attack Eise saved my butt, and also and allowed me to survive, basically. However, it had some unintended consequences. Well, before it had unintended consequences, Eise attacking me was bad. Obviously, it was bad. But it was bad because I should have been able to kill Satis, and I was not able to because Eise attacked me at that crucial moment. And actually, I want to talk about that a little bit more. So after early expansion, we were one of the smallest nations. I think Satis was smaller than us by maybe 1 or 2 provinces. Then we were pretty small. Obviously, Pangaea was very small, but I never got an accurate province count, but he got rushed really early by Eise, so it doesn't really matter. So I was just going to attack it's just the 2 small neighbors fighting, and honestly, nobody was concerned that we were going to get so large, although Scaleria was certainly trying to spin it that way. He was trying to say, oh, be afraid of Man, because Man he's going to eat Satis up. But even if I ate Satis, I would still be the size of Marignan, right? Like, Marignan would still be bigger. So I think most people saw that. I don't think Eise attacked me because he was afraid I was getting big. I think I was just like next in line, right? Like, he just took Pan. It made sense to attack me. He had taken this fort, and he knew that I was men, and I didn't have any way to counter him. So I do not blame East at all for attacking me. If I were in his position, I probably would have done the same. Okay, let's talk about my early war against Satis. Satis is a pretty is a good nation, I think. Their mages are Death 2 and they have water in nature, so there is no reason for you to ever not do enchantment 5 right away, right? It's obvious. So knowing that, if you're going to fight Satis, you know that they're going to go Horde of Skeletons right away, and that also means they're going to get Foul Vapors right away. Just because, of course they're going to. They're going here for the Skeleton spam anyways. Of course they're going to have Foul Vapors. I don't think I switched into enchantment 4 fast enough. I think, in hindsight, the moment I decided I was going to attack Satis, I should have beelined for enchantment, because it was obvious I was going to face Foul Vapors. And I won the first fight definitively, but the second fight I took a lot of casualties. And I didn't need to have... no other tech mattered. I was fighting him not with magic, but with conventional weapons. Like, okay, Wind Guide maybe, but he doesn't even have archers. He's got 1 million units, even if my archers are a little imprecise. By the way, longbowmen have 12 precision, I think, right? They have, he's experienced, so he has 13. But by default, they're very precise already. They don't need to be, extra Wind Guide precise when you're fighting, a mountain of chaff and skeletons. The arrows are going to hit stuff. So even alteration is worth delaying. I think if I had been planning out this war ahead of time, I should have gone for enchantment 4 right away. What that would have changed in that game, I don't know if it would have changed any significant outcome, but potentially I would have been ready with Poison Ward for that second fight, and I still would have had a fairly powerful army, a much more powerful army. I took a lot of casualties to Foul Vapors during that one fight. It wouldn't have stopped East coming and taking all my shit. That's life. Okay, so that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all I have to say against for me fighting Satis. His Skella spam I completely neutralized, I guess in 2 ways. One way is just by having better sort of chaff killing machines. Like my knights, with a critical mass of knights, you can just kill the chaff fast enough to get to the back line. If he had 20 Skella spammers, that might have been an issue. The other thing is I also can spam monks, right? And monks with banish is almost is cheaper to spam than Skella spammers, right? They're kind of expensive to build. So I think that as man, I'm less worried about Skella spamming. In fact, I was looking forward this game to potentially fighting Scaleria, and I'm very curious to see how man can do against Scaleria. One of the things, remember, that I took as part of my bless was I have penetration, and that is partly for some of the nature stuff, like charm and whatever, but also penetration is going to affect the monks who are doing banishment spam, right? If we just look at this, it's MR negates. And so one of the things that nations like Airmore and Scaleria has is they have these buffs that buff the MR of all of their skeletons. So normally H1 priests aren't that good, but these are H1 priests with, +1 pen. So they're actually pretty good H1 priests. Plus, I think the Fire Banish is one of the best ones. And, I can recruit, these guys cost nothing. I could recruit, infinity of them, right? So I was looking forward to seeing how that worked out. We never got the chance to. That's all right. But, yeah, I wasn't afraid of the Skella spam from Satis, but the Foul Vapors really, really did a lot of damage. Okay, so then Ease attacks me. We recover from that. But in our effort to Diplo our way out of it, we did not... there was an unintended consequence, which is that Agartha still hadn't gotten his target, right? So if you remember, when East was attacking me, had to convince Scaleria to attack East. So Scaleria and Agartha were going to fight each other, I think, or they were considering it. And in order to get Scaleria to attack East, I had to I had to have them not fighting each other, right? Which they agreed to. They agreed not to fight each other, and so that Scaleria could go and fight East, which I needed to have happen, otherwise I would have died. However, that meant now who is Agartha going to attack, right? He wasn't going to attack... Well, let's leave Satis out for just a moment, right? For some reason, he didn't want to attack Abyssea or Marignon. Like, he chose me as his target. And in hindsight, it was clear that I was his target from the beginning. By the way, Satis early on had asked Agartha, as soon as I started attacking him, he'd asked Agartha to attack me. But I think I had good relations with Agartha early on, and, you know, how we handled our bump here, I think he kind of respected me for how that happened, and so he was not so eager to come and 2v1 me. But he changed his mind and he decided I was going to become his target, and that's totally fair. That's legit. Before I go into Agartha's point of view, let me just mention that Marignon was also difficult to convince Marignon to attack East. But that's not because he didn't want to. It's because he knew that he was the biggest nation, and he was afraid that Scaleria was going to attack him in the sense that, like, Marignon is the biggest, he's getting even bigger, we can't let that happen. And Scaleria was shouting really loudly during the whole game, like, really spewing that out, like, some kind of psychological warfare against Marignon, like, really trying to scare him into not getting bigger. Which I think is an appropriate thing to do if you're Scaleria. But I think Marignon really, like, it paralyzed him a little bit, and it was difficult for me to convince him to attack East. And so in order for that to happen, you know, Scaleria had to agree to not attack him, and so that empowered Scaleria. That gives him power in the diplomacy. All right. I don't know much about Abyssea. I never got a good read on what their empire was doing. I maybe he's a less experienced player. I don't know. That's not really fair for me to say. I think he was pretty small, and he didn't contribute much to the game while I was in it. And I don't know what's going to happen to him. I'm pretty sure he's going to get killed soon. Like, I don't know what he's doing. He seems to not have been very relevant so far to most of the game. So there's not much that I can say about that. Again, I have no good information, so if he does have stuff that he, you know, wants to add, then I would love to hear from him. Let me talk about from Agartha's point of view. And again, I don't have complete information, but my feeling is that Agartha had been building up from the beginning of the game. He was thinking of attacking... when Eise attacked me, there was some diplomatic opportunities, right? And there was going to be a dogpile on East, that was clear. And so Agartha... The problem is Agartha didn't neighbor East, right? So there was a way to get him to go after East if he wanted to. Because remember, East is underwater, so Scaleria can go after him. But because he's undead, right? But having only Scaleria go after East means that now Scaleria is huge, right? Because Scaleria goes all the way down here, and now he gobbles up all this water, and then he's untouchable in the water to everybody except Agartha. Agartha is the only other nation that can really go underwater here. And so Agartha should be worried about Scaleria getting big. And the only way to answer that is to, well, either you attack Scaleria, or you get big yourself. And so he decided to get big by attacking me. His other option would have been get big by attacking Abyssea. Or he could have attacked Satis, and through Satis, like through here, right? And through Satis, he could have contested Scaleria for Ease, right? Now, I don't know in terms of his diplomacy. I think he considered himself an ally of Satis. My feeling is, if I were in his position, consider what happens, right? And at the end of the day, he attacked me, and eventually he won. Although I think it was more difficult than he had originally planned, but he does beat me eventually, right? Also, he was very lucky that Marigno, there was a sub for Marigno, like in the middle of that war. If the original Marigno player had been playing all along, he would have come and taken at the end of the game, all of my land went to Agartha. If Marigno hadn't subbed, I think, like I said, I had no problem with Marigno coming and taking my land before Agartha took all of it, so he wouldn't have gotten as much, but forget that detail. At the end of this war, Agartha had me, but Scaleria had all of this, including these two rich provinces. All of Satis's land belonged to Scaleria. Plus, Scaleria is still fighting East, but he just got this for free, basically. Scaleria got Satis for free. So now, Agartha, the end result of his decision is, now it's Agartha plus man, so he has this, and Scaleria has Scaleria plus Satis, but Satis is worth more than man if you count these two provinces as part of Satis. Plus, Scaleria also has all of East, right? Consider what his other options could have been. Suppose he had gone after Satis and maybe later gone into the pond here. What would have happened? I would have gotten maybe I don't know if I'd have to concede this, but I would have maybe this province, maybe both of these provinces. I would have a little chunk of Satis here. Agartha could easily have taken this, and maybe the capital. I don't know who wins the race to the capital. But by the way, Eise's capital is right here, right? So Agartha can get some land here, and then land in the water, right? And in fact, if Eise is busy fighting Marignan on land here and on land here, like, there's nothing stopping Agartha from taking all this water, probably taking this, all the water here, right? That could have been an end. That could have been an end result for him, right? Getting control of a chunk of the water, letting Scaleria fight Eise, in these coastal areas. Marignon's fighting him in these coastal areas and in here, right? And nobody's challenging when, Agartha brings all his amphibious sacreds, into fight here. That could have been an option. And then at the end of that scenario, Agartha has a lot of land, although the borders are a little weird. I am still not super strong. I'm basically the size of Abyssea. And who is my next target? Well, my next target is clearly East over here, right? I'm trying to help Scaleria fight East, and then who knows what happens after that, right? So that could have been one option. From Agartha's perspective, the other option would have been take over Abyssea. If Agartha fights Abyssea, then, and wins, presumably, because I think he's bigger, right? So he wins. Then he's got a whole nation, a very nice contiguous border. I finish my fight against Satis, presumably win, although probably Scaleria comes and takes some land from me, right? And so, again, at the end of that, he is bigger than he was before, but importantly, Scaleria doesn't get free Satis, right? So I think, to me, that seems pretty clear. Like, I know I'm talking in hindsight here, but to me, that those diplomatic outcomes seem pretty clear to me. By choosing to attack me, he basically gave Satis to Scaleria. And I think that was obvious from, when he decided to make that initial attack. And now he's left in a position in the game where, yes, he is bigger. He has conquered another nation. But his main rival, which is Scaleria, is much more dangerous. And Agartha, who is Agartha going to attack now? I guess he goes after Abyssea, right? Would be the next choice. I don't know. But I think his other choices, which were go for Abyssea or go for Satis and then maybe some East, in both of those cases, because it leaves me to fight to contest this land, it means that Scaleria isn't as strong. So, anyways, that's my analysis. That's my take on it. I think Agartha might have. Well, we'll see. We'll see how the game goes, and I'll be curious to see when Lucid eventually releases his Let's Play. But I think that giving this up to Scaleria is going to come and bite him majorly in the butt. Okay, yeah, that's the main thing really for diplomacy, because after that, like there was a sub with Marignan, so it's really hard to tell. I was never able to get Marignan to commit against Agartha beforehand. But then there was a sub while those negotiations were going on, so it's really hard to say what would have happened. In terms of... So let's go back into the nuts and bolts of Dominions 5 and talk less about the diplomacy. In terms of the fights, I was quite happy with my scripting. I think that's one of the things that I do better, more than, like... I still feel like I'm not very confident with, like... with, like, my thugs and kidding guys. Like, I don't have as good a feel for that, but scripting I think I have a pretty good feel for, and I think I was very successful in a lot of these fights. I had two major blunders. One major blunder was when I broke siege here, and his thug ended up coming on here onto the province, and I guess I just didn't anticipate that, and that cost me a lot. And I should have been safe. Like I tried to double guess him. Like I had moved my thug killing squad to here for assuming he would move here. I don't know why I assumed that. It would have been safer to just keep everything in together. And it would have been less greedy, but it would have been much safer. So that cost me a lot. That cost me like 40 knights. And then secondly, the second big mistake was when I attacked this fort. After his army had gone missing, and I think I just was suffering from wishful thinking there. I was hoping that he was moving his army away, when in fact it was moving here. It was just regrouping and moving here. And then after that, my fate was sealed. I was going to lose for sure. So those were my two major mistakes in the war against Agartha. In terms of tech, in terms of research, I had already gone down enchantment, so there was no stopping that. I think, like, Foul Vapors is not the best choice against Agartha. It's just what I had, but I feel like maybe... Like, I remember distinctly when I had just finished fighting Satis and I knew I was going to fight Agartha. The reason I went for Foul Vapors is because I saw a lot of crossbowmen and infantry, and I wanted a way to kill those, because I knew the crossbowmen were behind all of his meat, and I was never going to be able to kill all the meat and kill the crossbowmen. So in that sense, Foul Vapors was good. However, he clearly showed a preference for massing Magma Children and his Sacreds, all of which were basically immune to Foul Vapors. So in the long run, I'm not sure it was that effective. I don't know if having Howl earlier on would have been a better choice. I think maybe it could have, and Evocation. So I'm sort of in the air about that. I think maybe getting Conjuration 5 instead of Enchantment 5 might have been something. But I don't know how I would have killed all his crossbows. So that is, we'll never know. All right, the last thing I want to talk about is my general build and my Pretender design. I also think this was, now in hindsight, having played this game, I think the build that I went for was a bit of a mistake. And so let me quit out of this and show you. So this was our Pretender. This is our Pretender. So I like Rainbow Pretenders in general. This is a greedier build. This would have been better suited for like an All Nations game, where having easier access to death, for example, and, you know, better cross paths for forging and whatnot is going to be really useful in the late game. What this Pretender lacked was an ability to directly, besides being able to cast Flaming Arrows, this Pretender did not bring anything to, like, winning key battles. And in such a short, like, the game deciding wars and diplomacy was happening in the first 2 years. I was out by like the third year, basically, right? Or the fourth year was when I was really dying. But the major like fights had already happened. And this kind of rainbow pretender is not able to alter the course of battle. You can't thug it out. It's the wrong chassis for that. In order for these death cross paths and all these other cross paths to really have an impact on the game, you have to have a kingdom, right, with an economy, and you're in the third year and you've got some research, and yeah, obviously you're fighting some wars, but like this allows you to win more, right? If you're able to win with like the basics of your army and your scripting or whatever, then having this kind of rainbow pretender is going to allow you to get into the mid-late game much more successfully than if you didn't. This game was too small for that. It was too greedy, I think, of a build. I think something like a Tiwaz of War, maybe something like this. I think this is correct. Well, okay, so this is just a very simple build, right? No alternate paths, right? We have basically the same scales, although here I have taken, I don't know why I did that. Actually, well, let's just construct one here. Let's build a pretender. So my testing kind of revealed that, like, so we want like maybe 4 or 5. It could be 4. You want this to get your knights out for early expansion. That's fine. Let's get growth 3, because we should always get growth 3. He can be dormant. He doesn't need to be awake. We could pay for these scales with cold and misfortune. You can take, let's take misfortune 3. That seems to be popular these days, right? Why not get some blesses, right? In fact, we don't even need, like, let's see. We could do something like this. Let me think about this. So why are we getting the blesses? Well, so this guy is a great super combatant. He's like the definition of a super combatant. He even has the combat caster trait, right? Air is going to give him like mist form, and plus he can cloud trap these places, so that's fantastic. Fire is great. He can have like fire shield. Earth has tons of great self-protection buffs, plus like reinvigorate. So speaking of which, remember we have sacred casters, and like we're never going to use our actual sacreds, right? So you go reinvigoration times 2. Now what do you do with air and fire? You could go with like air resistance, like lightning resistance. Precision might be a thing for your casters, right? That could be, you could do something like this. Now, the major shock resistance, and suppose you did this. You're getting the shock and the fire resist almost mainly for this guy. So you can just send him in against fire or lightning nations. Otherwise, this doesn't make a lot of sense. Maybe you don't. I mean, this would depend what nations you're fighting, right? Maybe you still do the inspirational presence gimmick that I was doing. Maybe here you do minor shock resistance and extra precision. Maybe that's a thing. I don't know. You could play around with this. Maybe you try to get some astral over here, right? How about like some cold scales like that? And then we can still have either, you can go with, I don't know, there's a lot of ways that you can combine these blesses. I still like the idea of Arcane Finesse, but Farcaster could be a thing too. Like a lot of the nature spells don't have super good range. So like long range nature spells with extra precision, that could be hilarious, right? This is definitely a thing. Plus, Astral Earth is an amazing crosspath to have, and this allows you to forge a ton of really useful gear. He becomes an even more powerful super combatant with Astral, because he can do like Astral Shield. Like this is very powerful. In the mid game, this guy alone could probably kill, like, if with the right gear, this guy could have killed like Agartha. Now we need to give him like some poison resistance gear, but whatever, that's fine. Plus, with Astral, like, we've already covered 3 paths that we didn't naturally have, because we have Earth and Nature pretty covered. this Air 4 is nice because it allows you to forge the air gear, which we normally are not going to be playing with Lucid's gem mod. So that's actually really important to have Air 4 because we don't have it naturally. So you've got your fire forging. Yeah, you don't have death, but you can empower him in death later if you have like some natural death sites, right? We can get into death as a man later with like Lamia queens. So because we have nature access, so it's not too bad. Yeah, and we get good coverage in Astral and Earth, which normally we only had a bit of spotty Earth coverage, not much Astral. And these scales are like, compared to before, so before I only had growth 2. This gives me growth 3. I'm taking 3 misfortune, but, we can live with it. We're taking 1 less. We're getting, the economy, this actually kind of balances out in terms of economy. But, we don't need a lot of candles because we're man. We could just we have 1 million priests that can preach, and we've got a lot of temples that we can spam everywhere. Maybe a build like this would have been more appropriate. Anyways, those are thoughts in hindsight. So I think that's going to be it for this series. I'm trying to think. I didn't write any of this down, of course, because I'm awful. But there are probably a couple of things that I was hoping to bring up that I've completely forgotten to. If that's the case, I'll maybe address them in future Let's Plays. Who knows? Also, of course, so I've told everybody, in the game that I was releasing this Let's Play, and now I'm going to start uploading it. And I would love to hear if you were one of the players in this game and you have some feedback and maybe there are some things that I said that you think are wrong or not accurate, or you want to provide your point of view. I would love to hear from you guys. And so if some of the people do get back to me, then I might add on another episode where I talk about what other people say and what their perspective was. And most likely, once Lucid finishes his Let's Play of this game, which is probably he's going to play for a while still because he's one of the major players. So between him and Agartha and Marigno, who knows how it's going to end. So I look forward to seeing his Let's Play. And also, once I see that, maybe I'll be curious to see what his take was on my situation. Although from his point of view, I was probably one of the minor, I was one of the more minor nations. But I'd be curious to hear his feedback, and I'll try to maybe include that in a truly final episode. But that might be several weeks, if not months, down the road. So that's going to be it. Thank you everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed this Let's Play. We lost, but it's okay. We learned a lot. We lost the war, but we won a lot of battles, and that's always very satisfying. So thanks again for watching. I look forward to seeing you in the next series. Take care, everybody.